Kia ora, my name is Heather Galbraith and I'm co-curator of Francis Upritchard's exhibition Save Yourself, which is one of two exhibitions representing New Zealand at the 2009 Venice Biennale. I've been to the Venice Biennale many times before, but never have I had the opportunity to work here and work with such a great artist as Francis, so it's a really big thrill to be able to be here. It's an extremely important event globally, but it's also really important that New Zealand's Aotearoa is represented here, so we're here representing all. We're standing in one of three rooms that border onto the Grand Canal in this amazing building, which this floor belongs to the Fondazione Claudio Buzio. The building itself was called Palazzo Mangeli Valmarana, and as you can see, it's incredibly lavish and decorative. It used to be the private chambers of a man called John Smith, who was a British consul to Italy in the late 1700s and was an arts patron, particularly with the painter Canaletto. So we're really fortunate to be in this space which has a really strong artistic lineage and heritage. But of course here we've got a very contemporary presence, a very contemporary intervention into this space, which has such a strong historical legacy. Now we're in the second room of Save Yourself, Francis's exhibition, and we're at a table festooned with dancers. All of these people kind of look as if they're dancing to the beat of their own drum. There's no single kind of sense of communality. They're quite isolated and independent figures. The one directly in front of me is called Bone Dancer, and it's one of a number of figures that Francis was interested in exploring the idea of looking at Japanese no masks and making something that looked a bit Japanese, but she's very interested in the idea of how often kind of cultural looks or stereotypes get approximated and sort of messed up. People have partial memories, people don't get the whole story, particularly Western views of non-Western cultures. So none of these images are completely sort of realistic, or none of them are based on an actual person or a historical source. They're all kind of approximations. But having said that, for me this table is just so jubilant. Everyone is gleefully dancing on the table, whether it's Eel Dancer, the black figure, who's quite heavy-footed and her movements are quite robust, to the delicacy of Yellow Dancer and Bone Dancer, whose hand movements are incredibly gentle and eloquent. And then you have the wonderful couple of Psychic Pushing, who's a blue elderly gentleman, and Rain, a purple figure, who are moving almost as if they're involved in some kind of meditative Tai Chi session, but maybe they're not getting it quite right. The lamps on the table are also a really exciting development in Francis's work. These are hand-blown glass lamps, and she's also made the brass brazed stands and the marble bases, sometimes based on modernist lamps, but always with a twist. This is the third room in the exhibition, and it houses a collective work called Lonely, which is comprised of the green figure of Momoko and three works which are called Tree Stump 1, 2 and 3, and which are found pieces of wood which have been painted very gently and very carefully by Francis and her assistant Hannah, who's also her sister. And the figures that Francis makes tend to be made in a similar way each time in terms of their construction, with an armature, which is often metal, underneath, atop which tinfoil is used to make the volume of the figures, and then a professional modelling compound called Super Sculpey is used on top to create the skin of the figure. Each figure can take up to 2 months to be made, and some of them are very, very delicate in terms of the ways that their hands and their feet and their faces have been constructed. Once the figure is baked in an oven at about 130 degrees, then it gets painted using pigments which the artist selects and then mixes into a sort of a very fine paste. The overall effect is that often the figures have lots of different sort of tonalities and colours on them, so that they look as if they've almost just been finished.